Socialist YouTuber Vaush has been in the news for a couple different stories. The first, and one that matters the most in my opinion, is the argument with JK Rowling over International Women's Day. They got into a spat on Twitter. JK Rowling likened Vaush to an abusive ex-husband. Now, I'm not one to normally want to make segments on other commenters or commentators, but in this instance, it involves JK Rowling, so it's particularly culturally relevant. And I think what we're learning from this tweet between JK Rowling and Vaush is that there are very much big differences between men and women. Even today, with all of the trans activists, more evidence emerges as society continues barreling forward, showing men and women very different. Males and females, very different. And I was seeing this tweet from Vaush where he basically said women should shut up. No, for real. He said women shut up, challenge or something. And I thought to myself, Vaush is a male rights activist. You know, look, I have no issue with trans people at all. The left tries to claim I'm transphobic because I make points about biology. And that's the weirdest thing. Sorry, it's called science. And if you're not a fan of it, and I'm not talking about any kind of like nebulous. No, I'm talking about quite literally like biological sex. You want to make an argument about society and gender? That I totally get. That I understand. If social constructs are just things that we develop as a society, we can change them. And so if you want to say there's multiple genders or whatever, I really don't care. Now, if you want to talk about biological sex, now I've got questions. If you want to set parameters and rules, I've got questions. By all means, advocate for your system or whatever you want. I got no issue. I'm going to live my life, do my thing. I'm very libertarian in that respect. But if I have a question about the system you propose, you need to be able to answer it. So I'll give you an example of what I'm saying. You have Lia Thomas. This is an individual born male who wants to be a woman, which they say is societal. Being a woman, this is what the left says. Being a woman is a social construct, and being male is biology. Okay, well, a lot of the leftists don't because they don't differentiate between sex and gender, whatever. But for those that have actually set the parameters and claim this is what they're talking about, okay. So a male can compete on a women's team because woman is a social construct. All right, I'm with you right now. You then have that other individual in the same class, Isaac, I forgot the last name, who was born female, but identifies as a man and got top surgery. So this is actually a biological change of the individual, but the individual who identifies as a man is still competing against women. My question is why? If man and women are social constructs, shouldn't this trans man not be competing against women because those are two different social brackets? You see, these are the questions I have about the rules you seek to impose. Now, JK Rowling, for the longest time, has been tweeting out saying women are biologically female and thus should have their own safe spaces. Vaush, of course, is an advocate for males who want to express a different social identity. And I have no issue with that. Again, I'm going to stress that point. You can, if you want to walk around dressed like however you want, I got no problem, man. It doesn't affect me. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do my thing. It does affect me, though, when you say things like women be quieter and start apologizing challenge. Wow. When Vaush says that about all women, I mean, is he talking about trans women too? Here's ultimately what I want to get to. We'll read the story. We'll go through why this happened. And Vaush did respond. But I want to talk about the differences between men and women. Because even in this day and age, when you have women's rights, International Women's Day, the pussy hats and all that stuff, you can actually see in the news, women seem to be embracing the differences between men and women more so than they have in the past. Now, I really, really mean it. Despite people like Vaush and their seemingly fractured view on what it means to be a man or a woman, I don't know. I don't know what he thinks a woman is. I don't think he has any principles. I think he's just saying things on the internet. I think he's saying it to try and get attention or something. Well, that's a little too reductive. I think he's saying things he thinks aligns with his audience. Obviously they accuse me of doing the exact same thing. I don't think that's the case. Vaush would probably argue against what I've said about him, and he's more than welcome to. But I like to have things set in logical parameters. So let's talk about the difference between men and women. First, JK Rowling spars with Vaush. They say, on Tuesday, Rowling shared a tweet that some users found transphobic. That day, the UK's left-wing Labour Party Equality Shadow Minister Annalise Dodds said on the BBC Women's Hour program that there were different definitions about what makes a woman. Dodds was speaking in a discussion about Scotland's gender recognition reform bill, which would make it easier for trans people to change their legal gender. Someone please send the Shadow Minister of Equalities a dictionary and a backbone. Happy International Women's Day, Rowling tweeted. Apparently, under a Labour government, today will become We Who Must Not Be Named Day, she added. In response, popular left-wing YouTube personality Ian Vaush Kaczynski slammed the writer Tuesday afternoon, saying, all JK Rowling had to do was shut the F up, and she could have been almost uncritically beloved for like a century. Women be quieter and start apologizing, challenge. Almost exactly 24 hours later, Rowling replied, what you and your ilk fail to appreciate is how tediously familiar I find your tactics. I had a violent ex-husband who used to tell me life would be great if only I'd comply. But you're making the same mistake he did. Women like me can't be bullied out of resistance, she wrote. Resistance, interesting. Vaush replied, saying, listen, Joanne, you don't get to play the victim card when you're the advocate for taking away women's rights here. Trans women are raped and killed in men's facilities, and you want to keep them there because of your trauma. Quit making your feelings other people's oppression. Now, there have been many stories about women being victimized by males. This is why I think Vaush is a male rights advocate. I don't think he's a trans right advocate because he told all women to be quieter, right? And that would include trans women. Perhaps, look, I'm trying to be as forthright as possible, okay? You can come to me and say Vaush only meant JK Rowling or whatever. I just don't understand that logic. Vaush is the one who is arguing that women means trans women or vice versa. That's interchangeable. If that's the case, Vaush is outright saying women and trans women, shut up. He's making a joke. I get he's being somewhat facetious. I understand all that. I'm trying to figure out what the rules are so we can work and live together. I would like people, I don't want trans women to be harmed in men's facilities. I think we need a solution to that. I mean, seriously, look at Blair White. Blair White is a trans woman, conservative. Now, imagine in some circumstance, Blair goes to jail. Are we going to put Blair, who presents as outrightly female, like you see Blair in the street and you think, hey, that's a woman. We can't put Blair in a men's prison. I certainly don't think so. Now, some people think you can. But I think if you've got a problem with rape in prisons, which is disgusting, it's not as bad as the movies make it out to be, because I've talked to people who've been in prison, but it is bad. Then you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to. But what do we do then? Do we create a transgender prison? Maybe, I don't know. And I don't think it makes sense to put biological males in with females because the initial reason for the separation in the first place was biology, not social construct. Ultimately, I don't know what Vaush is trying to get at by telling women to be quieter. I don't understand how you are the progressive left-leaning individual who is telling a woman that her trauma doesn't matter. That to me is a bit absurd. Complaining how victimized you are when you are a billionaire being mocked for opposing civil rights is the height of cry bullying. Let's talk about civil rights. What are civil rights? Civil rights. Okay, so if you're a group, you want equal treatment under the law. Is it equal treatment under the law when you are given a special privilege or access? The answer is no. The left argues yes. I'm not citing anything specific in this. I'm speaking generally. If you are granted money or access to the libertarian meritocratic individuals, to the constitutional republic types, well, that is not equality. You should not be given things from other people. To the left, they feel that we have to directly balance the imbalance. That's the leftist view. So if you're someone who is marginalized or historically oppressed, we must take action to alleviate that. I certainly understand that argument. Now, there is a middle ground almost no one ever talks about. And that is, we recognize that there is inequality under the law. We change some of these laws, and then we move forward and try to heal. I think that's what the right has done in a lot of ways, accepted these laws. There was certainly resistance to some of these laws. Blockbusting and redlining used to be legal. Blockbusting is a crazy practice. You see, that's not civil rights, right? We need to say, under the law, you'll be treated equally. If that's the case, then we have some very serious questions to answer. And I think the right should have, absolutely have this conversation with the left. Although I don't think it'll happen because the left is absolutist in their logicless morality. But the question is, if you have a trans woman that is, let's say 10 years on hormone replacement therapy. Someone who transitioned from 18, because let's say they are an adult, but they're now 28, 10 years on hormone replacement, and this individual looks and presents completely as biologically female, even though they were born biologically male. I don't think that person should go into a men's prison. They're going to have different muscle mass, different bone density. They're going to be likely victimized. But I don't think we should just take these people and put them into female prisons, because when you're dealing with logical systems, when we're trying to say within the law, what are the parameters by which we send a person to these prisons? What happens when you get someone who is 6'5", super ripped, 220 pounds of pure muscle, who says they're a woman? Okay, well, we don't want to put a person like that in with a bunch of 5'5", 120-pound biological females over the fear of violence. And look, these are people in prison. These are people who are typically in prison for hurting other people. We want to minimize that. If we want to make sure everyone is being kept safe, then maybe we don't put people who are massive in with people who are typically not. Now, there are challenges there, and good arguments too. Let's say there's a guy who's 7'5", 280 pounds, pure muscle, massive dude. You put him in with regular guys in a regular prison, and he's going to be able to push people around. So ultimately, I say those are outliers. And we recognize that. And we just try to do our best to make sure we minimize harm to everyone, even the men in these prisons. How you do that, I don't know. But there are questions about how we handle trans people going to prison. I think it's a fair argument to have, and I think it's a discussion that needs to be had. Now, JK Rowling was basically making the argument that there should be spaces for females. Well, okay. I don't disagree. I think people have a right to say, like, I would like to be around people that experience life similar to me and things like that. And that means you end up with race-based caucuses. I'm not a fan. What I'm saying is people can associate as they choose. The Klan exists. I don't like those people. I think they're pretty nasty people. I am inspired by Daryl Davis de-radicalizing these people. But you know what, man? I don't own your life. I don't own morality. I don't own the universe. I am not God. I am not a lord. I am not even any kind of demigod deity or special in any way where I can take away someone's rights to live as they see fit. In which case, if JK Rowling wants to be around a bunch of females, I'm like, well, I don't know. If a group of black people want to create a black-only caucus, I'm like, I'm not a fan of it. If it's in a public institution, I have questions, and I will likely advocate against it. So if like a public school or if a government institution was trying to create a race-specific thing, I'd be like, no way. If a group of white people want to get together and talk about being white, I say, not a fan. Don't like it. Do whatever. Leave me out of it. If JK Rowling wants to do that with women, I'm like, I don't care, man, whatever. Now, there are questions as it pertains to public institutions. But let's talk about the difference between men and women. Let me talk to you. We have this story from the New York Post. Cop turned OnlyFans star makes $2 million a year, fears men only want her money, from March 1st. This is not the only story about a cop, a female cop who quit and became a porn star. Look, I got to be honest. You're doing OnlyFans. This is what you're doing. You want to call it soft core. You want to call it erotica, whatever. Fine. It is adult services. It is adult entertainment. A former cop who makes millions of dollars on OnlyFans has revealed she has never been on a date and is scared of gold diggers using her and her hard-earned cash. Charlotte Rose, 28, has been sharing saucy content on the website since back in 2016. She quit her career in law enforcement several years later when the money began pouring in. I find this really, really interesting, to be completely honest. That there's a woman who has a career, she's a cop, and she quits, she makes more money, and it's not the only story. There were several stories that I've already covered that are similar about women who get a job, and then once OnlyFans comes out, they decide to do saucy content instead. Now, why is that? I think what we're seeing is that there is a big difference between men and women. How many men are doing OnlyFans? I'm sure there are men who do OnlyFans. Not most people doing OnlyFans. In fact, women tend to be the gender that engages in this kind of behavior. Strip clubs. Strip clubs tend to be female. Women go to strip clubs to see women. That's the weirdest. I was a teenager and I had women being like, you want to go to the strip club? I'm like, you're a woman. Why would you? They want to do it. Men and women, males and females are different. Now, I don't know about her being scared of gold diggers or whatever. I bring up this story just to point out that women are very different from men. And then I want to talk about how our culture is going about things. I was thinking about why was it that Vaush is a male rights activist? And I think there's some overlap here. Check this out. This is a YouTube trailer for League of Legends Wild Rift. To be honest, game looks pretty fun. I'm a big fan of Warcraft, the original Warcraft. I don't play Dota or League of Legends or anything like that, but looks fun. I don't know if League of Legends. Is League of Legends Blizzard? It might be. Anyway, take a look at the thumbnail they use here on the right. It is a blue-haired woman smirking, and she's swinging her hips. She's got her hand on the left side of her hip, and she's got she's scantily clad, wearing just a bikini top of some sort with a bunch of bullets on it. Okay. So, who are they marketing to? This is the interesting question. I talked about this the other night on Timcast.IRL. I see this commercial on Twitter all the time for Wild Rift. Yes, they're marketing League of Legends to me. In it, you have two women. One has pink hair, and she punches the screen, and then it shows this other woman kick a hole in a wall. The woman who punches the screen is then shown having massive, cyborg robotic fists, and she's punching and jumping. And this blue-haired woman, I don't know their names, maybe you know the names of the characters, is firing some kind of full auto gun while laughing and popping bubble gum and spinning a gun. And I'm like, who are they marketing to? I'll tell you. Dudes, not women. This female character is scantily clad, okay? Look at the male character. Well, so in the screen, I chose this frame on purpose. The woman in the forefront is wearing a large metal-looking dress, I guess. The guys are wearing armor. Now, the Viking-looking dude is wearing Viking-looking armor, so his legs are exposed. Then you've got this guy with massive pauldrons or whatever they're called, and he's got, his metal armor. The woman to the left is wearing a skin-tight bodysuit. And then you have the woman to the far left who's wearing a short skirt. Her legs are exposed as well. Well, I guess there's some balance in the Viking having his legs exposed, sure. This female on the right in the thumbnail who's wearing nothing but a bra, a bikini top, whatever you want to call it. Do young women see that and say, I would like to be scantily clad like her? If they do, why is it? Young guys are going to see the attractive-looking character avatar, it's sexy or whatever, and they're going to be like, I'd like to click on this. This is just reality. You take a look at how YouTube works. The thumbnails used to be nothing but women in bikinis because people knew it would get them traffic. But she's got bullets. Is that something women are aspiring to? Here's what I see. The reason why you have so many male rights activists like Vaush is because what we have done over the past couple decades is prop up women in masculine roles. So men, when it comes to marketing, still want their women to be sexy. So, of course, they'll make the women look sexy. But they want women to play, so they'll give her bullets and guns and whatever, because they're going to make a strong female character. Yet in these video games, you'll notice, even going back to old World of Warcraft, if you got the forest leather boots of agility or the forest bracer leather armor, when the male character wore it, it covered his full body, and when the female character wore it, it was like a bra. I don't think women are looking at that and being like, this will provide me with protection. No, I think men are looking at it and playing the game for the sexy female characters. I think men play the games because they want to see sexy women run around doing these things, and it's a fact that the majority of the players of these games are men. When mainstream pop culture props up an image of women as extremely sexy men, masculine, right? Engaging in masculine behaviors, you end up with a worldview based on females acting male. If your view of women is that they do male things, then when you have a male saying they're a female, or when you have a male saying they're a woman, you would likely advocate for them because you live in that world. You grew up in that kind of mixed reality of masculine traits applied to female bodies. I'm not saying it's an absolute. I'm saying it's kind of a gradient with some overlap. That if you live in that world, it's no surprise that you're going to advocate for biological males to be these to be women, because we have in video games female sexy characters in masculine roles. So masculine individuals will start to identify the other way. You see what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. It doesn't just affect young girls who don't see strong feminine role models. It also affects males who see females acting masculine and think they want to be like that. I think this plays a role in a lot of this argument. Again, I also think people should be able to live how they want and should have civil rights and all that stuff. There's no argument against that. Simply, I think marketing and this drive is resulting in these perceptions. The reason I bring up the police officer who quit to be a porn star was because I think that deep down, biologically, there are differences between men and women, and I think it affects development and ultimately affects worldly perspective. So it's funny because I could say something like this and the feminists would get mad, but it's a fact based on their own logic. Females are worried about being attacked by men. They say not all men, hashtag not all men, right? Yeah, well, they're basically, they're not referring to trans men. They're talking about biological males as the main purveyors of violent crime. Males are the majority of perpetrators of violent crime, mostly against other males, for sure, but against women as well. If a woman is scared of being assaulted by a male, well, I get it. I do. They're different. These things are reality. That is a reality of biological difference. I think it's kind of pointless to talk to you about it because the people who watch this probably already agree there's a difference between men and women, males and females. But I was thinking about Vaush and JK Rowling and how this ideology comes to be. And ultimately what I come to is, I've talked a lot about how if you keep showing women, females, in these video games, but doing masculine things like fighting in war, which is traditionally masculine. I'm not saying women can't do it. I'm saying it is traditionally masculine. And you don't have any strong role models doing traditionally feminine roles like protecting society, educating, nurturing, healing, then you end up with a skewed perspective. You end up with people neglecting or ignoring or not wanting to be associated with femininity. And I think there's something wrong there. But, one of the things I was thinking was, it's kind of how I tried to explain it. And I'll wrap it up with this because it's, I don't want to just keep repeating myself. If you have biological female characters in video games doing masculine things, and a male identifies with these masculine things, fighting in a war, and they see a hero who's biologically female, they may say they want to be like that. So you take a look at Lia Thomas, for instance, wants to be an athlete, traditionally masculine. I know women compete, I'm saying, but it leans towards the traditionally masculine, but wants to be a woman doing it. Well, maybe they identify with the women characters in the games and the media they've consumed. The same is true for women in the other direction, or say biological females. They grow up, they identify as female, but they see these strong masculine characters. So I think this plays a role. It's marketing. Dare I say it, it's capitalism. I'll leave it there, though. I'm not going to pretend like everything, I have all the answers. These are just my musings on why Vaush is a staunch advocate for males and tells a female to shut up. Trying to understand that. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.